All right. All right, everybody. Thank you again for joining us for our virtual wine tasting. We have John from STEM, and we're excited this month. We're doing all Washington wines. So we're going to start off with the Chardonnay, and we'll have John speak a little bit about it, and then we'll go to the second one.
Thank you.
That just blocks me anywhere. I don't know why I'm here. I'm productive. That is the least.
And there's Esther in the
We're allowed to
background.
talk.
Can't talk on camera.
I am working. That always blocks my shot.
We are nothing if not professional.
Yes.
So the first option for Wine Club this afternoon is Disruption Chardonnay. Disruption is a project from Andrew Latta, who cut his teeth making the Charles Smith wines for about 10 years. He grew that brand from 1,000 cases to almost 1 million cases over the span of about a decade. And this is a secondary project of his. Disruption is a Chardonnay from 2 different single vineyards. One is a rapidly expanding evergreen vineyard that rose to fame with the Eroica wines, growing Chardonnay and Riesling, but is very well known for having the perfect soil typicity for Chardonnay growing in Washington State, and that's in Columbia Valley. The second is the Sundance Vineyard, which is opposed to evergreen in a couple different ways. Most importantly is the climate. So evergreen is a cooler site and lends a bright streak of acidity through the Chardonnay, while also giving some lifted aromatics, some slightly floral tones, while the warmer Sundance lends some sort of lush, tropical, more opulent fruit tones as well.
So I'm getting like, it's obviously a lighter, less oaky,
Correct,
crisp. Not going to be your oaky butter bomb. It's going to be more lean.
There is a touch of new French oak on the wine, just to
Yep.
give it a bit of roundness.
Definitely
and
can tell it's Chardonnay, but yet almost I don't
Bright.
want to say Burgundian.
Brighter.
Bright.
Yeah, I would say that this tends, if you have oaky buttery at one extreme and then Chablis and very steely and lean and linear at the other, this is sort of a happy medium where there's a little bit of new French oak that lends texture and some non-fruit characteristics, a little bit of vanilla and baking spice and brownness on the palate. But it is all about this sort of bright tropical fruit. So it kind of almost reminds me of Chardonnay from the south of France, where there's
Right.
still like a weight and a richness to the wine because it comes from warmer climate areas.
Right.
So slightly higher alcohol and a little less laser-like focus with the acidity and a little bit more about breadth and
Right.
texture. So, but lots of like tropical fresh
Yeah.
fruits.
So this would go really well with food.
I think it would, yes. I think the acidity and the structure you have lends itself to cutting through fat content in food. Maybe something citrus focused, maybe something like a ceviche would be really good as well. Thinking like a scallop ceviche kind of energy to this wine would go great. But it doesn't have that richness of butter and oak, which means
Right.
it kind of gets out of its own way in order to make itself a good food pairing. So yeah,
And again, I
it's
think
super versatile.
we picked these because they're very indicative of Washington.
Mhm.
I mean, that's what we wanted was what you're typically going to get from Washington is, I think, this kind of Chardonnay.
I think so. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, there's a lot of different. In the Columbia Valley rain shadow of the Cascades, you're talking about portions of the valley that get 5 inches of rainfall a year. You know, similar climates like Arizona, very arid, very hot. But then in different portions of it, then you start to see upwards of 20 to 25 inches of rainfall, and slightly cooler, slightly warmer, different aspects. So there's a wide variety of terrains and terroirs in Washington, and especially the Columbia Valley. But this is a nice demonstration of bringing a couple of them together that are fairly different to bring a nice round wine. So-
Yep. Perfect.
And it's a Chardonnay that I'll actually drink. So.
Yeah.
I was just going to
Yeah.
say that.
Uh-huh.
Well, especially
Most
going
people
into
don't.
the
I was gonna-
summer
go ahead.
months. I was just saying, going into the summer months, to me, this is an easy drinking Chardonnay.
fresh,
Easy.
delicious.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
normally drink a Chardonnay, but if you can get your head out of the way and
Right.
taste it,
Very
without
nice.
the preconceived idea you're drinking a Chardonnay,
Yep.
I actually like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's
It's nice.
there's a length to the wine, but without being cloying, right? It's
Right.
not sweet, it's not
Nope.
super unctuous, so it has
That's
a
nice.
refreshing quality
Yeah,
to it.
nice.
But you definitely make it like
Well
a
acid.
100-degree day on the porch kind of sipper.
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, everybody. So I hope you enjoyed the first possibility of Wine Club Chardonnay. Now we're going to move to a Merlot
The
from
Bernard.
Washington as well.
There, can you see it there?
Bernard Griffin.
With a label.
Joe's going to pour it for all of us, and John can start talking about the Merlot.
Thank you, Joe. So Bernard Griffin is new to Arizona, but not new to Washington. So this is a family-owned winery that controls just about all of their own fruit. So about like the majority of their fruit comes from Caraway Vineyard, which is owned. The other fruit that they get comes from various sites across the state. What's important though is that this is a husband and wife team. It's a family enterprise that was bootstrapped in 1983 with a few tons of purchased grapes and some rented winery space. So this is kind of one of those true American winery stories where it started from nothing and has grown to be one of the more prestigious and award-winning family-owned wineries in Washington. So we're still talking fairly small-scale production here, even though they have become known as one of the more well-recognized family names. But again,
Arizona, it's
new
a
to
limited,
Arizona.
yeah.
New to Arizona, which we were very excited about to bring another Washington State family-owned producer in.
Which we love to do for Wine Club, is bring in some new stuff into Arizona, which is what we try to
Absolutely.
do.
And when we tasted through this lineup, we tasted about 6 different wines and ended up picking 5 of them. And my particular favorite of the 5 we picked is the Merlot. I think there's a lot of mediocrity out there across all wines, and a lot of Merlot can be a little flat. It can fall a little, what we call flabby. There's a lack of acidity, maybe it's a little sweet and rich, and therefore it's kind of been viewed, especially since Sideways, as something that was kind of, it was a varietal that fell by the wayside because people had this preconceived notion about it, much like the Chardonnay drinker
Yep.
either loves or doesn't love Chardonnay. We think this Merlot is indicative of what the New World, especially Washington State Merlot, is capable of doing, especially at this price point. I really think it punches above its weight class. So the fruit component tends to fall on that blue, black fruit end of the spectrum. So kind of like richer, riper blueberry and plum on the nose.
But I would say a lot of times Merlot is kind of heavy, kind of punches you in the face. To me, this is very balanced. It's lighter, I would say, than kind of a Napa Merlot.
For sure. Lighter.
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 Yeah.
I think the word
It's not
wouldn't
bad.
be refined.
Refined. You could-
I think that's a great word for it. I think in the sense that, we're talking about under 14% alcohol here.
Yep.
Which means that the wine doesn't have an overbearing weight to it, right? It's got some elegance to it. I think
Very
that sort of
much.
refined, elegant portion of these Bordeaux varietals can be lost a lot of times in New World hot climates.
Yep.
Merlot is supposed to be sort of supple and round, but it's not supposed to be flat and flabby. Like, it's supposed to have these soft tannic edges. It's not too dry, right?
No,
This
it's
is
not
like,
at all.
it's not a very
This is
tannic
not-
wine.
That's a great point. I'm glad you
It's
said
actually
that.
very nice.
Right.
Yeah.
Because most
It's not dry.
Merlots
It's not
are
tannic.
very
It doesn't-
dry and tannic.
Just
And
a
so if you're
separate
scared about
cookie,
dry and
it's actually
tannic
very balanced with
Merlots,
the fruit.
you don't have to worry about this on this one, because
Right.
this is not dry, not super tannic. Very
Yeah.
balanced, very,
And there's a nice sort of, there's a richness to the fruit in a sense, but it's not sweet.
No.
It's still a dry wine, but it's not overly tannic. So that leads itself to having that sort of refined, elegant quality, while having all the right fruit characteristics of New World Merlot, but without having residual sugar. And while also being small scale production, they're only making about 1,900 cases of this wine. So
Very nice.
still, Rob himself, the original proprietor, is still very hands-on with the viticultural practices and the winemaking practices, which is crucial to our ethos at STEM. But again, this is a great price point for something that's produced at less than 2,000 cases.
Yeah.
Over-delivers. Over-delivers, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think this is a great example of what Merlot's potential at this price point really is. Like,
Yeah.
it should be delicious, soft, round, but not fall flat on the palate. And I think this is a great example.
Yeah, it's spot on. Absolutely.
And I think part of what I like about it, I'll actually go on camera while talking. Part of what I like about it is I think if you're a cab drinker or a red blend drinker, I think you would still really like this, because I know a lot of people are like, I'm afraid of Merlots, I don't really want a Merlot, but it does have the body and some of the dryness and roundness that a cab has, but then it has some of the blending, I don't know, even with the red blends.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think this
Defy
would
me
go.
not to like it.
I think this would
Good
go.
transition wine to go for
Yeah,
one.
that's
Very
right,
good
yeah.
transition.
I think it'd go with a lot of different
Yeah.
foods.
Thank
too.
you.
I was going to say,
If you were
if
talking-
they were blind, we
Very
can't do
good
it 'cause
transition
they'll
wine
look
from
at
one to
the
the next. It's very good transition.
They're not gonna
Very
be-
good.
No. They'll look at the bottle.
I wouldn't.
The Chardonnay, you're like,
Yeah.
is it a white blend with Chardonnay in it? This is almost like, oh, is it a red blend or a
Right,
cab?
that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying, yeah.
They're hard to place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're hard to
And
place.
do
you
you
want
think
that
that's
difference,
normal
you'll get
with
something
Washington?
like
They're pretty though.
I think that you know, it would be tough to place this as Merlot because there's so much Merlot out there that there's such a wide spectrum. Where should it fall?
Right.
You know, it's been shifted and pushed. I think this is right down the middle.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is right in the vein of correct fruit component, especially for Washington. There should be, you know, if we're talking Merlot from Bordeaux, we'd be talking about a lot of non-fruit, some graphite, some
Right.
earth. There's
Not getting
touches of that here in a sense, but this is mostly blue and black fruit forward. It's still very opulent and very showy with its fruit, which is indicative of New World Merlot. But I think again, people think Merlot and they probably have a lot of mediocre Merlot. And
Yep.
this is one that has nice length, nice texture. But again, I think this is a great warm weather drinker. You know, it's
Yeah.
100 degrees out. You don't want something that's
Great
super
warm
tannic and
weather.
high in alcohol. You want
Right.
something that's a little bit more refined and
Right.
elegant. And this is great. Honestly, this even with a slight
Great.
chill on it, like at cellar
Oh.
temperature, like 65 degrees, would
Yep.
be perfect for
You
the
could
porch.
serve this with almost anything from the grill.
That's what I
Oh,
said.
yeah.
Yeah. This is
Grilled
any
foods,
grill.
you know, you're barbecuing out, like if it's too hot, just turn on the oven.
When
Yeah.
even something leaner, like, you know, because of the lower tannins, you could talk like a pork, like a
Oh,
lean
yeah.
pork cut, or
Yeah.
a lean, like a fillet cut, something
Yes.
that doesn't have a ton of fat content to
Yeah.
it. Whereas as we get into the Cabernet, we're going to talk about more structure, and
Yes.
you can have more fat content. But I think like something that's slow cooked too, like a braise
Yep.
pork, would be fantastic.
This would be perfect.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, everybody, we're going to move to the second red, which is a little bit bigger, bolder. We have Requiem. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about that.
So Requiem is a single wine project from the creators of Banshee, which a few people might be familiar with.
On our shelves.
Banshee is on the shelf here. It's quite a popular wine. The Mordecai Red Blend is one of their more popular wines. Like many businesses, a business grows and then you sell that label or brand off and then you start other passion projects. And this would be the sort of second and third wave of the guys from Banshee. Requiem is exclusively Cabernet from Washington State. Their first vintage was 2016. And this is 2017 vintage. What we're talking about here is about 6 different vineyard sites in 3 different AVAs of Washington State. We have a lot of Walla Walla fruit primarily. Thank you. And a little bit of Red Mountain as well. But what's important about these different vineyard sites is the different types of soil and different types of diurnal shifts. So when we're talking about the soil types in Washington, what's very important to note is that this is a massive floodplain. The Missoula floods from several million years ago washed through Washington and deposited below a certain elevation a massive amount of loess. So a lot of just sort of river silt, if you will, was deposited over bedrock, and that's where the majority rather of Washington State vineyards are planted, is on this sort of floodplain level, and that's where a lot of this fruit comes from. And what I love about this Cabernet is that it delivers a lot of nuance and texture and non-fruit characteristics for a very competitive price point. I think when we're talking about Cabernet, we're looking for those darker, blacker, bluer fruits, kind of similar to the Merlot, but with a bit more power. So we're talking about higher alcohol here. So this is close to 15%, whereas the Merlot was 14. So we're talking about more weight on the palate. It's more
bigger.
texture and
Yeah,
richness,
more
right? It's
texture.
bigger.
Yep.
What I also like here is that they're able to coax out some nuanced non-fruit characteristics. I get this fun sort of almost like cocoa element to this wine. And there's a fair amount of new French oak. It's about 40% new French on this, so we're getting some layers of sort of cedar and a touch of baking spice as well, which I think complements the opulent fruit.
Yeah. Yeah, this is definitely more tannin, a little bit bigger, obviously.
Slightly drier on the back.
A little drier on the
drier
back.
tannins on the back than before.
Like you said, this would be better with a little bit more fatty foods, possibly.
Yeah.
Yes, I was going to
Lots
think
of
that.
foods.
Now, am I mistaken? Because it happens once a year, but the Washington wines taste more Old World. I tend to like Old World more than California. These have an Old World-esque taste. They're not as big, they're not as fruity, they're not as
A little
low.
more earthy, maybe, or.
To me, I mean, again, I could be wrong. That's what I taste. They taste.
I'm still getting a lot of fruit on this. I'm not
No, it's
getting a whole lot
fruity,
of
but it's a
fruit.
little lighter. It's not massive.
No,
It
it's
seems Washington wines, in my opinion, tend to have a little bit more earthiness and dirtiness on
Yes.
the back end.
Which is old
Which is more
worldy.
Right.
Yes.
Typical, yes.
Yeah. And I think that's when we talk about those non-fruit characteristics that
Right.
come
Yes.
in and build layers into the wine, right?
Right.
So everything we like about this wine as far as structure, there's acidity, there's tannins,
Yep.
the alcohol is not too high, it's in line, and it's dry.
Yep.
There's not a ton of residual sugar
sure.
on this wine. It's nice and
Oh,
dry.
I like this.
And so then when we talk about the fruit characteristics, we're talking about all the things we look for in Cabernet. There's like lots of black fruits wrapped around a core of like a little bit of pyrazine, we would call it, which is that sort of green bell pepper element, but just just a touch of it, like a dollop. And then you get some non-fruit characteristics added by new French oak. And then also there's just sort of that savory sort of, I get this like almost mocha cocoa
Right.
nib
Yeah.
element to this wine.
And I think with this one, I think with higher end Cabernets, and again, they helped us out immensely on this. This is one that we've never been able to do for Wine Club. We were able to do it now at this point in time. We've always loved this wine. We've always talked about it. It was just a little more expensive. This one, they helped us out on it, and I think it very much over delivers. I think it's well balanced because you still get the tannins and the dryness of it, but it's really
It's
put
my
together
favorite.
very well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very much.
Your
I think,
favorite?
yeah, it's my favourite.
It's quickly
good,
become,
nice New York strip or something with a bit of marble on or something like that would be
Absolutely.
beautiful.
Yeah.
higher fat content.
Yeah.
This is my favourite.
Absolutely.
I like this one.
I think what we love about Requiem is that what they're able to do is harness years of experience in the industry to source high quality fruit. A lot of times with Requiem and their other labels in California, you have an overabundance of fruit from very, very high quality fruit sources. So say you anticipated a 10% increase in demand, and then for some reason, such as a pandemic, all of a sudden there's a drop in demand. So someone comes in and buys that fruit for a fraction of the price, like Requiem, and is able to blend a wine from a few different fruit sources that are all high quality that could be bottled for 2 to 3 times the wholesale price.
Yeah.
And that's what they're
That's what
capable
this
of
is.
doing
Right.
now.
Yeah.
Because of those relationships they've fostered over the years, they're able to deliver a wine that has quickly become for our portfolio a core wine that you see around town because it's got an affordability and an ability to over deliver, as you mentioned. So
Right.
lots of length, lots of structure, and tons of layers. It's not one dimensional by any means.
Right. And you mentioned the Banshee.
Right, this is the one, the other one, the Banshee Mordecai. Some of you have had this before. This one is one of the Napa wines that these wine producers make.
Sonoma.
Sonoma, sorry, Sonoma.
Yeah. And so they
Same.
built that company
Yeah.
from the ground up. And what happened was, like most companies, you grow, and then someone comes in and goes, "Hey, we'll cut you a check for a controlling share." And with Banshee, they got to keep creative control, but then with that check, they're able to spin off and start Averain, Valraven, some wines that you'll start to see around town are just new projects, right? So wines you would see on the shelf here, wines you'll see in the wine club that really are made in the most conscientious way, but at the most affordable price point. It's the
Right.
perfect balance between those two.
And again, I think you're getting a lot of Washington characteristics in this as well. So I think all three of them are good indicators of, you know, hey, do I like a typical Washington Cab, Merlot, Chardonnay? This is going to give you a good feel for kind of what Washington has to deliver.
Absolutely.